No.
No, what?
Is
All right, you're all set.
Is John Grieve gonna come?
No, he sends his regrets. By the
Okay.
time I reminded him, it was a bit on the late side, so that was my fault. But he did say that he has applied, and they said, well, there are currently not any openings on the committee, but we will hold your application. So he is, but he downloaded the minutes and the agenda, and he said he would take a look at that. He's trying to keep involved and keep informed.
Okay, so no other introductions, public comment, we'll skip. Corrections to the agenda or additions.
So we're calling the meeting to order at 4:04. Okay.
Okay. There is an addition to the agenda. It had already been posted, so we have to add that today. But Peggy and Fred asked that we review properties 23, 602, and 603. So I would like to add that to the agenda. Any other comments, additions? Vote to accept.
I move that we accept the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, now the minutes, and I do apologize. I had, Peggy sent to me in a very timely way. I had corrected it, but somehow my fail-safe system of saving the corrections did not work. And so the initial notes are what you got. I think most of it is really good anyway. The only things that I would add, if people have a copy in front of you to take a look at it. Peggy had used Red to ask some questions. One of them was about Mark Robinson. And I just said eliminate that. We actually had talked with Mark in the past. This is around the grant, and he's too busy to do that. I'll get to more on that later. Also, just a typo. Danny O'Connell reminded the committee, not reminder, that property would need to be approved by town meeting. The only other one that I had in terms of old business that's on the second page is that it says the town, Bruce Herter said the town does not hold titles on several property. That's actually not the way we want to write that, I think. The town, the best of my understanding, the town has gone to land court and gotten the properties, the ones that we've been putting into Conscom that are transfers. But there is a deed that is essentially a deed for conservation that would add some protection to the land. So as written, that's not correct. And however, we want to frame that. Tom,
Okay.
we need deeds to support the transfer for conservation to Conscom. And what's the name of that deed again, Denny?
Oh dear, it's a conservation deed a deed for conservation purposes. But I have one other suggestion in that line.
Yeah.
We work with land court. I would just say work with assessors.
So work with assessors to obtain the deeds.
Yeah, for conservation purposes. Yeah.
Okay.
So Jenny
So
would,
is that something Nancy would do?
You would want to use her.
Yeah. Okay.
I have
so
one other thing.
can I just ask, so we would say, Bruce said that we need to work, I could just skip everything at the beginning. Bruce said we need to work with the assessors to obtain deeds for
Conservation.
properties that we have transferred into Conscom in recent years, something like that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Good.
Can I?
Tom, did you have one more?
Yeah, this is a minor thing under the NRAB discussion. The second item, this is one of the town meeting articles from NRAB, but it's the last sentence says, if funded, the Center for Coastal Studies would conduct the study. I think maybe you should put in something would likely conduct the study. It's not
Okay.
really firmed up yet, so.
Do you need to even say that? Can you just take the
Should we,
sentence out?
yeah, should we just take it out?
Yeah,
Okay. And I put that in red because I figured that I might need some clarification, Tom, so thank you. And is
Okay.
the first bullet clear though as stated, the black custard?
yeah,
Okay. And the amount of 25,000, et cetera. Okay.
yeah, that pretty much.
I'd like to go back to page 1 if I might. I know I usually get my comments to you in writing, but back on
Right.
page 1, down the bottom, on property management, would
Yes, yes.
like to add triangular signs. They are diamond-shaped signs.
Okay, I think
That's
right. you corrected it one other time and I have triangles. Diamond,
Diamond shapes or whatever.
diamond shaped. Okay,
And then if I could just clarify on the sentence or paragraph that you took out.
Yeah.
Just as general education, there are 2 types of grants
mhm,
that DCR does for conservation lands. One goes to a town, and that is the land grant. The other goes to a conservation trust, and that's called a partnership grant.
is that the park?
No, it's
No,
no.
because park's a different one. That's for larger towns,
Yep.
as I read it.
Well,
Okay.
I think land grants covers that.
Okay,
And let me just say that if it is a grant for a conservation property, I think we can get Mark to join in on the fund. That's what we did with the Pinto property. You guys own it, but we got Mark to do all the grant work and all of the CRs and all that sort of stuff. So that's just for your clarification.
okay.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
was, in terms of the 5-year plan, which is where this started, Mark expressed was not able to do that. And so that's what I thought this was referring to. I would hope if we can get this going, and in fact, that's going to be first on my agenda, that it'd be great if you would help us with that.
Yep. And we'll chase them.
Okay, so again, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened to my save, but it didn't. Any other switches or?
I just have a question since John's not here. I wrote down under housing partnership, when he was reporting the APCC, he said, is on top of these issues. Is that Association to Protect Cape Cod?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
I thought it was preservation of Cape Cod.
to preserve. Well, I looked at the acronym online and that came up, but so did a lot of other things that begin with the letters APCC. So,
Okay,
Bruce, I think it was that, but now I think they call it Protect.
okay.
I might, it's one or the other. I know who APCC is.
okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, all right, any other changes or questions? Okay, move to accept,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye, anybody
Aye.
opposed? No opposition, okay. So the chair report, and I've been using this loosely to kind of talk about what I see as pressing issues at the time, but so I'd like to start, and it was listed down further with the 5-year plan and the land grant, because I got a call from Jeff Thibodeau just asking where we were with it. He says he's still willing to do the 5-year plan with us, but wants to know for his own, time, finances, et cetera, what's going on. So I explained, that right now we really don't know, but we haven't started the grant process yet. And I know John Griebid said he might be willing to do it. Are you, Fred and Peggy, are you still willing to chip in with that, or?
I'd provide moral support. I actually looked up, I found the application online and I sent it to John. So I'm an enabler.
Yeah. Okay, well, if John's willing, I don't think it's a real, the application itself, I don't think is real hard to do. I'm a little concerned that when, Rebecca Slick had volunteered to help us, that was pre-chaos in the town government. And I'm not quite sure what we can count on. I mean, my guess is that there's just a lot of things happening from all sides.
Bruce, I would not assume that. I think you should talk to Rebecca. Is her name Rebecca?
Yeah,
I think you should talk to her, just so you've covered that base, and offer her an out.
good point. Good point.
Is that John and Peggy will take care of that for us.
Right.
And I think also, Fred, I know you had information, you made some comments at our last discussion, and I think it would be really helpful if you could be involved, because you seem to have some insights.
Well, I think the big thing in my mind was, where do we stand with having to have a land project before we go very far with this?
Right. That my understanding, and this came from a discussion with them, is that you do have to have a land project or you don't get the $12,500. You can bring the land project. My understanding is that, if we bring this to town meeting in good faith and town meeting says we don't want to do it, then we've acted in good faith. We've tried to save the land, and I believe we'd get our money. But there has to be, and Mark also followed up on that, Mark Robinson. In fact, his involvement got me a call back for the first time in about a week or two of trying to call those guys. But that is my understanding. So, but I think to take a look at it and start working on the stuff we can do. And if the Piles property as an example comes up and Conservation Trust is doing something and we can add to it, we're in a great position right now in that the Pilgrim Springs mortgages have been paid off, the borrowing, or just about. And so we're starting to build up some cash on the CPC. So I think we're in a good position to do that. But are you okay with meeting at some point, Fred and
Sure.
John, and see whether we can just start this? Because I'd like to, it's really fair. I mean, we can tell Jeff we just don't know, and I apologize. But I think if we have somebody who is a real expert at doing this stuff, who is willing to do it and interested. So I hate to lose him.
But I just want to understand, Fred's question is whether, in order to actually submit the application, we would need to have the land identified, or we just need to be in the process of obtaining
Well,
land.
I took it a little differently.
Okay,
And the way I took it was that you need to be actively pursuing a land grant.
Right.
And in order to actively pursue a land grant, you need to know the land.
Right.
Because at a minimum, you're going to have a purchase and sales agreement that has been agreed by the seller and agreed by the town. So you will have a preliminary step before you go for final approval.
Right. Right. And we're nowhere close to that. But I think that, I'd like to, if there's a possibility, if you can think of anything, Denny, that we might do to really kind of think about that, and also to start the grant itself, I think just makes sense anyway. And then if things, so far, that grant has just rolled over on a yearly basis. I'm sorry we missed it for so long, but Jeff is appropriately asking where his involvement is right now with us. And if we're just not going to know, I think we can say that, gee, it's not sure it's going to happen this year either, but it's not fair to keep him hanging and say maybe we can do it if it's just not likely. So the bottom line is I'd like to get a meeting of the group, and I know it's premature for John, but if he and you, Fred, and I can find a time, are you willing to look it over? And
Yeah, let's sit down with it and
okay,
do what we can do. And if we run into a stone wall, we run into a stone wall.
It looks like the key things they need, I printed it out. The question is, what do you want to do? How much money do you need? And the first thing is appraisals. Estimated cost of the appraisal, then open space plan, and your estimated cost of the fiscal year 21 plan and the fiscal year 22 plan, and then planning to facilitate land project. Anyway, so it breaks that out, and that would be stuff that I know John would have. I can't imagine he would know how to fill that out. So I think it would be some brain power coming together for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, where this started for us was an opportunity to get somebody who's really got some skills to do our 5-year plan. Unfortunately,
Town won't pay for it. Town won't let us pay for it.
yeah. Well, I think that really the place we're stuck right now is we don't have an identified land property. So anyway, go from there.
Well, but if we had the money to just hire Jeff outright, then we wouldn't be applying for this grant, as I
Correct.
understand it.
But it's not, he was asking for 1,500 to do,
Just the proposal.
write-up for the grant.
Yeah.
And they said no to that, even though it's in our budget.
Yeah.
The idea that they're gonna come up with, $12,500 for this, I think is small. Again, we can ask, like Denny said with Rebecca, I mean, we can, we're due, we really should be doing this, but as everybody knows, the town is not in a good place to be supporting this kind of stuff now. Okay, Vice Chair, Tom, anything?
No news.
Okay. Property Management, Fred?
No news.
And Lynn's not here. Bob, anything with trail guides or Denny?
I'm working with Lynn, and she's back later this week, I believe.
Yeah.
And we will finalize a couple of them and get them to the printer. But other than that, no.
Okay. Elementary school, Bob?
You're on mute, Bob.
Oh, yeah. Bob, can you hear us?
I don't see Bob either.
No news.
There he is.
There you are.
No news?
No
No
news?
news.
Okay. Okay. The Conservation Trust, the Herring River Overlook is moving into, the trail is being constructed or may be constructed.
It is constructed, and just for an update, so is the parking area there. But we don't have any signs out except for arrows along the trail. There's only one trail, which is a loop, and it's about 3/4 of a mile long, by my miscalculation.
About how long, didn't it?
3/4 of a
Okay.
mile. And there are still some spectacular views out there.
Anything else, Denny, you wanted to bring up for Conservation Trust?
Oh, Well, Conservation Trust is working with the Friends of Herring River and the Herring River Project to dedicate, for conservation purposes, the Herring River Overlook Trail to NACA, which is North American Wildlife Conservation Act or some such thing. But anyhow, it's the source of a $2 million grant for the project. And if we dedicate our property out there, that will be considered a $4 million contribution for the NACA purposes. And as far as we can tell, it doesn't do anything to us. We do a whole lot of things that are directed at preserving the conservation. This would just be another one. So that would be a real boon for the project to get a $2 million grant. So,
And what does the dedication entail?
a dedication entails filing at the Registry of Deeds a notice of, I don't know, conservation grant or some such thing. It's basically another conservation restriction, which would sit on top of what WCT does. And you may know that we do a charitable trust land conservation act with the Arenda Wildlife. And so it's already protected. We give everything that we have to Arenda, and then they immediately turn around and give everything back with the exception of development rights. So for any development to occur out there, it would take extra people to be involved, and that's all that this NACA grant will do to us too. But it is a registered interest in the land. So,
It sounds wonderful, Denny, with that. I mean, that's a big grant for the project.
yep.
Hmm.
Okay,
Other than that, we've been working on our newsletter, which should come out in another week or so. We've got all the articles done, and now it's just a matter of getting it formatted and printed. So that's coming.
Denny, at our last meeting, you had mentioned the Historic Society wanting your help, and you had asked whether we'd be willing to help with the Wampanoag.
Well, I asked for your permission and offered to let you help.
Okay, well, and I offered to help, and now I have a conflict.
Well, we're okay.
Okay,
I mean, that's going to take place on June 28th at 5 o'clock in the evening.
oh, it's now the 28th. It was originally, I thought, the 23rd, so,
Oh, maybe it's the 23rd. Hold on.
okay,
I get confused by dates.
yeah.
You get your
Oh.
3s and your 8s mixed up.
if it's the 23rd, I can help with that if you need any help. I mean, if it's,
Well, I don't think we need much help. It is the 23rd,
23rd.
and the real emphasis of that is for Marcus Hendricks to talk about how the Wampanoags lived around this area. I don't know, it's overly specific to Pilgrim Springs area, but he'll wing it, I'm sure. But it is the 23rd. Thank you. I get up every morning and look at my calendar and figure out what I'm supposed to be doing.
same thing. Okay, CPC, Bob?
Well, we have a meeting coming up, but we haven't had a meeting yet.
NRAB, Tom, anything else?
Well, John, you're here, right? John Reel?
Yep.
Do we need, do you think that we should have a formal vote of the Open Space Committee on those 2 articles, or did we do that last time? I don't think I just presented them. Maybe it's not.
Any support is welcome. They don't really touch on open space issues.
Okay.
However, turnabout being fair play, NRAB did vote to recommend to town meeting the 2 parcels that you want to transfer to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with taking a vote to support it. The votes that we are, I would say mandated, but we're expected to take are disposition of town properties, whether or not that's going into conservation, open space issues, property issues in town. Those are ones that we're expected to do. But, I think we have certainly the right and to take a look at this and support it if everyone's in agreement.
We have 2 issues on the warrant. One is to use the black custard spoils to help restore or maintain the integrity of the Duck Creek marshes, and at the same time save a lot of dredging costs to the town. And the second article is to do a fishing survey of Wellfleet Harbor as part of being sure that we understand the health and well-being of the harbor. The first one is $25,000. There's been a lot of preliminary work done already by the Center for Coastal Studies. The second one is $60,000, and we will have to get a request for proposal if that should pass town meeting.
Yeah, I'm struck just as you're saying that, John. For 60,000, we definitely don't want to say that this may go to the Center for Coastal Studies, because you need a competitive bid over 50.
When I referenced the Center for Coastal Studies, that had to do with the black custard study. Did not have to do with the harbor survey, for exactly the reason you said, that we have to be very careful about that.
So, and just
Although
a question with the black custard study, how would that work? I understand we go listening to the shellfishing group kind of talk about it. It sounds like that it's limited in terms of the time of year. And how would this study actually work? Would they be taking a small amount in a small area and seeing how that works, or?
Well, there's a kind of dredging technology called suction, and that would be subject to the same time of year constraints as the current dredging, which means November, December in the winter when the terrapins aren't around. The difference is that we would then suck up some of this black custard and then redisperse it so that it's finely divided material and could be then picked up by the flow of the tide upstream toward Duck Creek. And I think
specifically, the article is to fund a engineering study
right.
to look at the feasibility of this.
Fair
Oh,
point.
okay.
Yeah,
That is my question. I mean,
yeah,
we're not putting the cart before the horse, essentially.
right.
Okay. Okay. What do people like? Maybe we need to. Are people comfortable voting for this and get a consensus on that? It's not, again, completely in our purview, but I think it's something that we certainly can do. We're allowed to do. Any thoughts, objections to moving forward with this? Just taking a vote, I'm asking, not what people's opinions are.
Well, for what it's worth, there is a nexus in that there's a lot of open space up Duck Creek, some of which is under the jurisdiction of the CONSCOM. And so I think that would give you a reason to say something. And really all you're doing is recommending that it be studied.
Right.
And so you're not saying do it,
Right.
study it. As far as the inventory of fish and shellfish, I don't know what your nexus is. So.
Well, I think one of the reasons we're putting all the marsh property into open space is to hopefully continue to support a healthy harbor. And I think the reason this is being done, as I'm hearing it, is just to take a look at what the health of the harbor is. So, I think that there is a reason
Okay,
to take a look at that, would be my feeling, but,
that's a,
and this
well,
is not something we're expected to do. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
Yeah, but whether the Conservation Commission did unanimously vote to support both articles before town meeting.
Okay. So should we have a vote on whether to take a vote?
I move we take a vote, whether to take a vote.
Okay, seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Now for the vote, any questions or more discussion on these two projects? Okay, so for the first one, the engineering study to redistribute the muck, what are they calling it? Custard,
Black custard,
black custard,
no longer allowed to say black mayonnaise.
right?
Don't say black mayo, yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
I'm,
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, and for the second one, again, this is a study of the harbor. And again, I would say that we have an interest at least in what we're doing to look at what the state of the harbor is. Anybody?
Your explanation did it for me, Bruce.
Okay.
Just remember that you might have to get up in front of town meeting and say, why did you vote?
Sure. I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
Maybe Jude Aaron will be there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hmm.
Okay. So 5-0 unanimous votes. Okay. So the Access Committee, I
Bruce,
just,
first, two things. First of
Yep.
all, thank you. Appreciate the support. And second, you could send the results of the vote to Rebecca, but maybe at this point, go directly to Danny.
will do. I actually will, from past bad experiences, sending it to one place, I actually send it to the board, to Rebecca, and
Okay, fair enough.
and they just CC it, send it to Danny, and I'll CC the other ones, but just so everybody is on board. Okay,
can
the
I
Access,
clarify, are these town warrants? What exactly did I say? You're submitting two requests?
these are two
for
articles,
Two articles, okay,
right, for the warrant.
thank you.
Peggy, what Danny Silverman will do is when each of these articles come up, he will announce this vote amongst all.
Right.
amongst others.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the wording exact.
Peggy,
Thank you.
specifically, the black custard one is Article 20 in the warrant.
No, it's been renumbered.
Oh, okay.
I think it's, if you go on the town website, you can see the official final warrant. I think the two articles are 25 and 26.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll look that up.
Yeah.
I think you're better off to talk about the subject matter rather than the article number.
Fair point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, now at the Access Committee, and John's a member of that committee, I've been going sort of as a liaison / interested person. But they are looking at a number of, this is not just shellfishing people, but the shellfishing people have a strong interest in it, but looking at town access primarily now to the bay, but also ultimately to ponds, to any of the water. Am I saying that right, John? With
Yes.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons that I've been interested is that the Agger property that we've taken a number of votes to support getting, it is being not both that property and access through the Heron little, what do you call it?
Heron Point Road.
Heron Point Road, but the little, round thing at the end.
Right, at the end of it.
But anyway, they're looking at, presenting a number of possibilities to town lawyers and to see whether, where things stand and how does the town maintain access essentially. And from my perspective, if that can be handled in any kind of a reasonable way, then it makes sense for us to be involved in the Agar property again. One of the things that came up with that was the question about, liability with the boathouse. As far as I'm concerned, that's the town's decision. I mean, if the town said we're fine with that, or if there's a way to give an easement to the boathouse so that the town is not directly responsible, however that can be worked out. We voted to support purchase of the land in the past. The reason we were now most recently have supported the easement is that I felt like that's something we could do without getting into, the land's not going to go into conservation, and you're not going to go in, and it fits in with what the access committee is doing. So I think we want to continue to take a look. I would frankly love to use some of our money to do this. I think it's we want to be supporting access. We want to be making bridges to the shellfish and other communities. And I think this is a way to do it.
When you say you have some money that could be used to help the access committee, what sort of monies are we talking about?
The open space gets 10% of CPC money by law.
Mhm.
And so up until recently, what's happened is we're paying off the Fox Island, Pilgrim Springs, and some other properties. But as of now, I believe, certainly within the next very short time, those are all paid off. And so open space will be getting 10% per year of CPC money to spend on open space issues. Now, if it's not going into conservation, can we do it? My argument would be that, this is a really good use of open space and we should be able to do it. One of the big advantages to that is the town would not have to go and borrow money. This is sometimes, as people know, at town meeting, there's a single CPC vote. And they'll just say, okay, we're going to do, open space and historical and blah, blah, blah. How does everybody vote? And people just vote yes if the CPC money is going along. So I think it's just trying to be helpful with that. It's not a 2/3 vote, it's 50% vote. And doing transfer of lands and some of the other things, you have to do a 2/3 town vote. And so if you get anybody, you get some negative stuff, that would work. So that's my hope.
So what would be 10% of the CPC
Well,
funds?
What Mary Rogers was saying the last time is the end of this fiscal year, we'll have 120,000 or something like that.
Was like 160, but
How much was it?
I was thinking 160. Let me see if I can
You
get my
may
hands.
be right, Peggy. Somewhere in that range, over 100,000, less than 2.
So you're thinking about perhaps using some of that to actually purchase the Agar property. Is that right, Bruce? Or
It's up to the town. Either
Yeah.
purchase the easement or purchase the property. I actually think that the town, when they take a close look, is going to have some issues with the liability too, unless there's some way, somebody was mentioning on the committee doing an easement for the boathouse where they would take responsibility. If there's some legal way that they can take that. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not our,
Right.
our decision. The question, what we tried to do in the past and we do is if we can buy some access, however we're going to do it, can we use our funds to do it? And I actually think the funds, it would be an easy way to get the funds. the Aggers may change their mind on the price, but in the past, they were saying 20,000 for the land, 10,000 for the easement. That's a small amount of money. And if it's coming out of CPC, I think it's a shoe-in virtually. Is that,
And
John,
the-
any other?
That amount for, Bruce, you were correct. It's 110, 110,000.
So John, any other questions or thoughts with the Agra property?
No, but I had not realized that you got annually this budget support. So that's, you'll be prepared to hear from us. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's why I'm coming to the meeting, just so you know.
Right. You all of a sudden become a great friend.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And they're also looking at Way 100. I won't go into all but these in Lieutenant Island, Way 100, for those of us who do the turtle work, we know well that's it's actually a town-owned piece of land which is managed by the Audubon. It's where the turtles are done, and that area is becoming really difficult area for the shell fishermen to get into the fence, not further. Also the southwest corner, but there is some nice work I think the committee has been doing to look at the access, look at parking down there, and see if they can work with the Lieutenant Island Association to do
The homeowners association is looking at putting in a proper parking space there, because they're as concerned as we are about people coming along and parking on the marsh.
Right. And again, there's a private piece of land that's there. I mean, we could not use open space money for a parking lot, but to get access over the paths that are there, the easiest access goes through a small piece of private property that's a non-buildable property. If that becomes helpful in the future, that's something that I think we could certainly look at too, Jonathan.
Yeah. Good.
And the Omaha, something that we were looking at earlier in the year, is also being looked at, and is actually the town staff is working with the neighborhood associations on that, and some others. Okay, anything else, John, on that you want to? The access?
I think any help or ideas you have about Omaha Road or Beach, please use Nancy Chavetta as the contact point. She's talking to the homeowners association,
right?
And I think we want to have a consistent message.
Right. No, good point. But I think that's the way to go about it. I think really to have Nancy and other staff get involved with that, and also to clarify it. Right now, there's that's not fair to say he said, she said, but there's verbal permission that's been given, is my understanding, some time ago. That's a tricky one, and so to get some more certainty on that. Okay, so moving on, properties for consideration. The two that we're presenting are 3186 and 42137. Thank you for NRAB for supporting this. The only, and I just wanted to tell my philosophy for these, and I plan to do it again, is to make it real simple and just say this is it, and a healthy harbor, a healthy marsh means a healthy harbor or whatever, and boom, we're done. As people know, people who saw the selectmen meeting, they skewered me up one side and down the other. So I thought that I would be ready, if asked, to talk about both what the expectation of conservation lands is, and to talk about our right to do it. I think that's now been settled, but I'm going to have the disposition of town property thing there if we need it. Anything else people think I should be, any other way to approach this, or anything else I should be including in my?
I'm thinking hard. I think it's a good question, Bruce. You know, on the one hand, to start off it with too much information, then I think may raise more questions. But to not address the things that we expect to come up as questions, then we'll just invite those questions and more. So I think trying to weigh, you know, we don't expect objections from the select board members for the most part, except for Justina, right?
Well, Justina voted against initially, but I'm not sure how the final vote went, frankly. I should look at it, but
Yeah.
they have supported us. And I think that the issue of disposition of property, I think she was just a step behind, frankly, in the discussion. And I think that has been settled
Okay.
for them. I mean, somebody else has the issue and I'll bring it up, but they have supported this and so move forward. You know, the big question for access is what's access, and you know what conservation does. As far as I'm concerned, this property over that we dropped off, the select board had some concerns over at the tip of Drummer Cove, you know, by Blackfish Creek, that there's no access by cars or even ATVs there. It's steep, people have been over. And I think that could have gone into conservation. I think that to work with the Board of Selectmen, though, who have some concerns, we said no. The shellfishermen in Omaha, as an example, look for parking,
Vehicle access.
vehicle access as well. And they are absolutely right that, you know, one of the things that you're doing is putting it into conservation is to make it more difficult to get that vehicular. And so, I mean, it's something we can talk about, but I still think keep it real simple. And if the select board has accepted our, it was a difficult meeting, but if they have selected our, agreed to our premises and supported the article, I think we'll just go and.
Well, I think you're on the right track about emphasizing provides the people of Wellfleet, you know, the public to have access to these lands that are town owned, but ensures that they will have use of these lands for recreational and other benefits, you know, that they're beautiful views of the marsh. In
Right.
fact, that one property, as I recall on Blackfish, there is a beach area.
That we
you
pulled.
That one we pulled.
That's the one.
I'm not talking the one that with the potential town landing. I thought when we
No, that's
walked
the
that,
one. That's the one with.
yeah,
the-
that's when we pulled. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was some beach area that trail currently went through. That's the Bayberry Trail. I thought it was 186. I'd have to look at that. Never mind. I
Yeah,
thought it,
That was 188. Okay.
okay. Oh,
Um,
okay.
Okay. And the only other thing to think about, this town meeting is late enough to think about parcels for next year. We're obviously looking for some land. We're looking at the agri property for some finances, but other properties to transfer, I would bring up the first, if the town, I don't know with COVID, whether it's gone through or not, but there are two properties on Payne Hollow Road, 29,400 and 505. And 505 is a new piece of property over there that are contiguous with, you know, a whole bunch of other conservation trust in town conservation land. And so if those are open, the only issue, I think, with 400 is that people do drive down there and use that as an access point to the pond. I'm not sure, given we'd have to really look at whether that would interfere with this going into conservation. But I think both putting those two in would be quite logical. It would complete a whole, if people can picture along Payne Hollow, starts at one end and there's preservation down the other end. These are the two lots in the middle. So I think it makes all the sense in the world. The other one that I wanted to bring up was both Peggy and Fred looked at map 23, 602 and 603. So people have their maps, you can know it, but this is property, the dog park and the well field. And just any thoughts you had, guys, before we discuss?
Well, when I looked at it, I thought they're really beautiful properties. And they are bounded pretty well by the National Seashore. And since they are well property, I assumed they were pretty well protected. And,
Right.
Wouldn't need further restriction than already exists, especially for, that would be for 602, which
Right.
is well property. The dog park is also a beautiful piece. It's interesting that it seems in the past there's been more use of it. And probably before the seashore was formed. Maybe Denny knows anything about that. As far as 602 goes, I think there was a Boy Scout camp there at one time, I believe.
Yeah. But the dog park is still semi-active. There are a number of people in town who take their dogs over there and let them loose.
Right.
And so that's there. I might just comment that a lot of other towns take properties that include wells and in the zone of influence and put them into conservation. I think that's a good idea. It doesn't do any harm at all. And, you know, you can, I don't think there are any restrictions to drilling new wells or anything like that. Still go through this normal process. So I like the idea of protecting zones of influence on these public water supply wells.
I thought if it's a well, and I'm going to check with Nancy on this too, but I thought if it's a well property that it had the protection. No?
No, the only thing it's got that I'm aware of are the zoning bylaws that apply to the zone of influence. And those are really have no real good teeth in them. They've got things that say, well, you can't start up an automobile manufacturing plant or an oil refinery or something of that nature, but they're pretty weak otherwise.
I'm looking at the assessor's map book, and for some reason I have outlined these two properties for something that we were interested in the past, I think. And what I'm seeing is dotted lines going through all of them. What is that? Does that indicate the well property?
There's a road that goes through off of Cahoon Hall Road.
Yeah.
And there's a gate part way down just at the east end of 602. And then if you follow that on down, you end up on Kings Highway.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what this
Tom,
notation on the map means.
Tom,
Yeah,
Tom, to answer your question, the dashed lines mean it's town-owned property.
that's all.
That's all.
Okay.
But you know, there are other properties out by the Coles Neck well that could be put into conservation too.
That's on map 8, property 131.
Yeah, it's map 8. I don't have my maps in front of
It's
me.
up access through Gristmill Way, and there's a gate at the end.
Yep.
Yeah, I looked at that. It's a really nice piece.
Yeah,
And we did find when Fred and I walked these properties, they're crisscrossed by a number of trails, footpaths. We did find at least one, maybe two areas, Fred, where people were dumping.
oh,
There was some sign of, I won't say there was an actual mattress, but that kind of dumping. It looked like it had been quite a while ago because it was quite a far way in, and I think it was after the road had ended, Fred. You know,
Oh.
when you walked in from LeCount, I mean, from Cahoon Hollow Road, where the well is. I think that's where the
I don't
fences on the
remember that.
road.
Yeah, you.
Yeah,
memory's
and I
better
think
than
it's-
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it was back on one side, a gully that was some amount of dumping. There's also near the dog park, there's like a sand pit that looks like it's been excavated. And there was debris, trees and branches and
That,
Well,
it-
people are
clean
using-
fill.
I've been out there when their cars been parked down on the dog park area, and
Yeah.
I met people walking there with or without dogs and
Yeah.
on various trails. So
Yeah, it's a pretty place to walk.
if you recall, the Conservation Trust walk was through that area maybe 3 years ago. And yes, there was a Boy Scout camp there. There's really nothing left from Boy Scouts, except maybe a few rocks that DPW put in place.
Yeah,
But also probably the dune that you're talking about, Peggy, that's been excavated, that was probably the firing range for the police department.
aha,
that's what it looked like.
And it looks, at least the last time I was out there, and I go pretty frequently actually, because there's a nice entrance to Duck Pond over there.
yeah,
There was evidence of ATV, activity, particularly right around where the gun range was. It seemed like, fairly recent to me. I don't know if that has stopped or probably a number of months ago. Anyway, I think the way to approach it is if we talk to the Water Commission, get a sense as to where other interested people are with this and see whether, it makes sense to do it. Because certainly both those properties are really beautiful. I think it's tricky with the dog park to do it because I don't think I think we're going to look at the conservation rules again, but I think it would be a little tricky for that. But certainly to look at both of these, I totally agree. They're gorgeous
yeah.
pieces of
yeah.
property. The one that goes, the dog park one also goes down, there's a little pond. that
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
My friends, the Taylors, have named Taylor Pond because it doesn't have a name. But it's actually, before it warmed up, was a great ice skating pond and,
Mm.
got all kinds of, so it's a beautiful area.
it's a
They're
good
both-
place for early warblers, for birding.
Yeah, absolutely.
they're
So, but
both-
anyway, I think if we can talk with the committees, so the water committee for one, and get a sense as to how they would feel about this. I don't think, or if they say, listen, we're protected anyway, we don't need to blah, blah, blah. But if they saw this as a positive thing, then I think that really makes sense to go through with the well property. The other one, I think, to think about the dog park. Is somebody comfortable doing that, checking with the water commission this time?
As long as they're doing it, we should also do it for the property up on map 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same deal.
Which property is that? I'm sorry.
I think it's 131 on map 8, if I remember right. Let's see.
They call it the Coles Next Well.
Yeah, it's 131 up in the northeast corner of that map.
Uh-huh, yeah, okay.
There's a couple wells up there at least.
Okay. All right, anything else for that? So last but not least, is this your last meeting, Bob?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I'd love to get together and have a, wine and hors d'oeuvres send off or something like that if we can figure out a time. But I really wanted to thank you for your many, many years of work and contribution in the committee. And, I the elementary school stuff, CPC, all of the, important jobs you've been doing for many years now. And you'll be missed.
Well, I will miss you guys, but I can see that you're well equipped to go forward. So that's just very, very satisfying to see.
So I'll work on the get together. I was thinking on a DERB just because I anything else is beyond me. So but we'll see if we can get that together.
That's a great idea.
Okay. And the elementary school picking up, you said you would do, Peggy, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So there are, Lynn does the
Peggy?
trail guides.
Excuse me, Peggy,
Right?
just, so you know, we really want to stay involved with that, and we'll do whatever you ask us to do, so.
Oh, okay, right. Thank you. Thanks, Denny. I'm hoping that Bob and I can, maybe once school is out, somehow meet the teachers somewhere so Bob can introduce me since he has made some contacts. So when we actually do have an opportunity to meet, perhaps in the building next year, I won't be going in as a total stranger.
Well, be careful, some of those teachers are retiring.
Uh-huh.
For instance, the 5th grade teacher is retiring.
Oh,
Yeah. I've heard good things about the teachers. That's good.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, the other two committees to look at are the trail guys. We can probably, Lynn's doing it as long as she remains on the committee, which she talked about leaving at some point in the future. Between Denny and Lynn, we may be covered. If someone else is interested, we have had 2 people on that committee. Anybody else interested in that? Okay, so we'll wait with Lynn. The other one, though, we need somebody is the CPC.
So tell me, Bob, what's involved?
Well, it's very interesting work, I think. It's a very functioning committee with people representing housing, representing historical society, recreation. And we look at the proposals, elicit proposals from people, look at them, evaluate them, and it's very nice because we can give money. So it involves really discussing these various proposals is the main focus.
That sounds like something I might be interested in. I enjoy giving out money.
Yeah, nice.
One of the fun jobs, right?
It's very well run, I think, the committee. It's a changing cast of people. But
It
I
sounds
thought it
sort of
was
like good use of time. I think I would enjoy doing that.
good, good. I think they'll be happy to see you, Fred.
Good.
And hopefully we'll have some projects that you could advocate for. It's been
Sure.
a little dry recently, but we have some possibilities. I think including some of these access properties. Okay, anything else you can think of, Bob, that we need to, besides the goodbye, that we need to do? Does that cover your committees?
Yes, I have a concern about building a rapport with the shell fishermen. And I know you're considering that and how to do that. I was wondering if you could get somebody to come to meetings.
Well, if somebody wants to, I'll open that up. I'm going to the access committee meetings, and even though that's not just shell fishermen, it's very highly represented by the shell fishermen.
Uh-huh.
That's a central issue for them, and that's something that I think we have some overlap. I said to John, in terms of giving money, we may be in a position where we can help them do some of that. So that would work wonderfully. If somebody wanted to be involved in the Shellfish Advisory Committee, I'm sure they would welcome having, and we have the public right to do it anyway, but in terms of a liaison doing that, I'm sure they would welcome that if somebody's interested. I'm tapped out now in terms of
Sure.
how many things. I think this advisory committee is a reasonable way to go. Is anybody else interested in the shellfishing? Because we should be friends. I mean, I totally agree. And, you know, I think there's some tension around some of the access issues. And most of that, I think, is really something that we should be able to work through. It should not be an ongoing problem. And
Well, of course, that area that you're talking about is just where what had caused them to start being active. And so it's sort of sacred ground to them, I think. And they were really some of the first people to move, or perhaps not, but it seems to me they were one of the first people to move for keeping access and for preserving the land for traditional purposes.
right, right. And, you know, my pitch has been and will continue to be that the biggest risk to them, as we know from what happened over at Lieutenant Island, is if that land falls into private hands, there may be real places of, you know, we don't want to get involved with Omaha because that's a place where the cars are going out and, you know, they want that kind of access. But there's a lot of access, including, I'm sad to say, out at Indian Neck. I was really disappointed with that. There's an access path over conservation land now. And, you know, putting it into conservation would not change that at all in terms of foot access. But it, for whatever reason, and the time is not right, and I think we need to sit on this for a while. I don't, it's quite clear that they're not supportive of it at this time. Okay. Anything else, Bob, with any
No.
other words of wisdom?
I have very few words of wisdom, I'll tell you that.
You've had lots of words of wisdom.
But I think it is a very important thing to keep the Open Space Committee being vital. And I think that it should be a time perhaps where you have some more funds and can do some more things, which would be really nice.
Yeah, I really hope, and I hope some of the things that I sent out the article that Denny forwarded. Did people get a chance to look at that?
Shouldn't that increase our annual 10%? Well, I guess you have to have sales. So they're not, although properties are more expensive, there are fewer properties. So I guess it kind of evens out.
But for whatever we get for the 10%,
Yeah.
the cost for the properties
It's
is,
going up, yep.
which is just
But
crazy.
it's not restricted to 10%. You can get more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What I'm saying is, you know, we have money there we need to use, and you know, if we're doing our job, we should be using it. But I hear you, Bob. I mean, if there's a property that comes up, we don't have to stop at 10%. You know, certainly.
This year, not all the money was spent that we had. And I think there are a number of people who are on the committee, who are very positive towards open space. That would be something that would be important, I think, to keep working on, though, which is the elementary school project does a little bit of that, but is to build a positive image of open space.
Right.
Which
I
is-
really agree that we need to keep doing that. You know, obviously in town, there's a lot of open space between Audubon, the park, et cetera.
Yes,
But-
great.
You know, with the list of things that we worked on for what makes open space that we'd want to preserve, I think if anybody looks at that list, you kind of say, well, yeah, I mean, why would you know, you have communities around the country that are spending all kinds of money to do preventative stuff around sea level rise. If you can buy the land and, you know, use that land as a protector, essentially, well, you know, why not do that? But anyway, appreciate your thoughts on your advocacy with this, Bob. And
Thanks, Bruce.
hopefully we'll be able to get something going here in the next year.
I think you'll get a lot going.
Okay. And I'll get to you. We'll find a time. Hopefully we can get together, even if they're saying meet by Zoom. Socially, we don't have to meet by Zoom. So hopefully we'll find a time to get together and
My dance card is wide open.
yeah,
Okay.
look forward to that, Bob. Anything
Okay.
else anybody wants to bring up? Okay, we'll move to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. No. I second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Uh,
Any opposed? No.
Okay. Bob
Okay.
voted twice.
Well deserved.
Vote early and
Bye-bye.
often.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
So I
great.
will,
Thank
the
you.
other thing is I will try to get back on it's supposed to be the third Tuesday, and between, some medical issues I had and being down in Florida and stuff, I just haven't kept that up, but I do think it makes sense to try to keep that up. And if there's some months we're going to skip, that's fine. But just to acknowledge we've been jumping around a bit with this.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Bruce.
I'll be in touch for
Thanks, Bruce.
Bob's get together.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Bruce.
Mm.